Thank you very much for the opportunity to have a conversation with you, and it's a great honor. And I prepared a few questions, and I think we'll start with a quote from my friend, poet Dominik Kiepura, that I've sent you in an email. There's nothing more beautiful than silence, silence and wind blowing at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. When I heard it just after we met, it was my first thought, oh, nobody would know better than Ken how it feels. And and it's only probably a few people who could say, because you have to be brave to go downhill with such a speed, and so how it feels.
Well, when you forwarded the quote to me, it certainly struck I would say a warm spot, because when you are on a downhill course, and of course not only going speeds at 100 kilometers an hour, but even more than that. You are in your own world, very much in your own world, and you learn over time to shift and from when you first start to ski and ski race and go into the speed events. It's just a thrill. It's exciting. It's you're challenging yourself. You're testing yourself. You're scaring yourself. You're all sorts of different emotions that test you. But as you become more and more professional, shall we say, you really turn in on yourself, and you realize that you have to take that exuberance, that excitement that I know, especially for guys, that when they go out on a downhill course and you get to the bottom, you're just going, yes, that was so much fun. It was like, the best thrill ride you could have. But you have to I call it compartmentalize. You have to put it in a place that, yes, you enjoy doing it, but you can't let that overwhelm the fact that you have to then analyze it, think about it. Where did I make mistakes? Where do I improve? You have to critique it, but you have to do it afterwards. You can't do it while you're doing it. You can't do it while you're on the course, because while you're on the track, you're always ahead of yourself. You're always looking forward. But when you get to the finish, you have to stop. You have to analyze it, and then you have to then say, "Oh boy, that was fun." But it's in the moment while you're coming down that you're absorbing it, and everything. You talk about things like feathering turns and being very careful and very deliberate and very exacting, and I'm sure a Formula One driver would say exactly the same thing. And then you step to the outside as a parent or as a spectator, and you go, oh my goodness, that's not feathering. That's just, you're just blasting down a course. And you realize that the difference between when you're actually doing it yourself and what others observe.
And you have to survive it, because it's one little mistake, and and
it's an important thing to always understand that it's an onion. You peel back the layers one by one, learning to become really good at what you do. So it's not like you step into going 100 or 120 kilometers an hour and taking on some of these challenging tracks like that. You've built on it, layer on day on day on day. It takes you really 10 plus years from the time you maybe got very actively involved in ski racing until you reach a World Cup level. And then from there, you have to learn the tracks. You have to, and so it's not immediate. A rookie coming onto the World Cup is not going to perform well. That's a reality. But you have to observe what the best are doing, not be intimidated by it, and then build your own experience, because what you're working within is you're working within your bounds of your confidence. So, and the more you understand yourself, the more you understand your skills and where you can push the limit and where you can't, because you do have to push the limit. You have to take that risk. But the better you know that, the more refined that is, the more likely you have to win the race.
You are one of the sports legend, but there's something special, unique about you. What I've noticed, all your life seems to glorify the values that were defining the sport years ago, and now these values are disappearing, like friendship, the joy of competing, not only the joy of winning, ability to lose, idealism, and romantic approach to sport. Would you agree with it?
I think it's changing. I think I wouldn't say it's disappearing, but it's changing. And we had things that we didn't have let's call it the intrusion of television. Television is important because that's what pays the bills. That's how the races are run. But then television now dictates timing, schedules. Where in my era, if a race was canceled, you could run it the next day. It was not unusual to run a downhill on a Monday. Now that wouldn't happen. The race would be canceled because TV will not show it on Monday. So those changes, there's more money, of course, involved. There's many more people as far as the focus of coaching, the service support. But at the end, one of the good things about alpine ski racing is that number one, it's almost impossible to do on your own. There are exceptional individuals. You see a Michaela Schifrin, the Slovakian girl, her name escapes me right now. They don't really have a team. They have a team of professionals around her, but she doesn't have teammates per se. But when you're in the speed events in particular, you have to have a team around you. It's really critical. And if I look at the young Canadian men's team right now in speed, or if I look at the Swiss team in the technical disciplines and in speed, they're a very, very strong group. And when you see them interacting, whether you see them in person, watching them on the hill, or when you watch them on television, you see that there's actually a very strong friendship there. But I think one of the reasons why it works in alpine skiing versus many other sports is alpine skiing is an individual sport, and you're competing against the mountain, against the track. And if someone comes down the hill faster than you, you have to observe them. You have to see what they're doing and adapt it into because you can do it too, if you adapt it correctly. So you're not actually having to, it's not like tennis where you have to beat the person on the other side of the net. You're trying to beat the hill, and having a strong cohort around you, good teammates, people that are highly competitive is actually an advantage rather than a barrier or a disadvantage.
Oh, that's very interesting what you're saying. I probably would think that also sailing would be similar conditions, like that. It's the speed is much different, but probably the idea is similar.
Yeah, and so team sports where you have to beat the other team, you have to outplay them, you have to get past them, or else you won't go further in the tournament. But in ski racing, you look, you observe, and then the other thing is that ski racing is a hard sport. You need to have people around to not only support you emotionally, but then also share the work, because side slipping the course, carrying the gates, everybody contributes something at some point in time. It's not all that the serviceman or the coaches have to do all the work and the athletes just come in and out. They, from time to time, they have to roll their sleeves up and help out too.
Yeah, which is very encouraging. You are going downhill with a speed over 100 kilometers per hour, and I have an impression that you never slow down, that you are always looking for challenges, looking forward to projects that were in line with your beliefs, values, and the will to share the talents with others and help the best way you can. And so what drives you to it, and what is your life credo, if I dare to ask?
Well, I guess from youngest age, then when I got involved in skiing, it shifted for me personally, and I think for many of my teammates, that because we came into a culture in Canada that on the men's side we didn't have any winners. We did on the women's side. So going back many decades, Lucille Wheeler, Ann Hegdeviet, Nancy Green, Betsy Clifford. And we didn't have someone who was actually winning World Cup races, and so we had to build that ourselves. But I know that the group that I came into the World Cup with all had the common belief that we could, that it was possible if we worked hard. So we had that goal. So we knew that it required a work ethic, a determination, a perseverance, patience. All important virtues to learn, teamwork, of course, working with our coaching staff and also working with each other. But we built that around that, and it was always on a basis of getting into ski racing. One of the challenges of sport in general, so this isn't just alpine skiing, this is actually a common Canadian issue, is we want kids to be involved in sport because it has great social benefits. But when you get into the elite side, you have to become quite focused, and you have to be very deliberate and determined. And the two are clashing all the time in Canada, all the time. And so, and there's, if you get good leadership coming from a sport, then you can manage it well, because you do need that base. You need a big, strong, healthy base of lots of people involved, lots of kids involved, lots of volunteers involved. But you have to realize that it does then eventually come into a small group, because in the end, you can only send 15 people to the Olympics, and you've got, thousands that are participating. And those people that go to the Olympics, they have to have, they have to have the right programs. They have to have the right culture built around the sport. They have to have the right plan and pathway. And that takes very determined leadership and a clear focus. And so, when I shifted from being an athlete to being on the administrative side and leading Alpine Canada, my credo was, we're in this business to win. But the qualifier after we had some winners was to say, and isn't winning fun? Because when you have a successful team, it inspires kids. And that goes back around then to the participation, where, if families and youngsters see a successful sport, one that looks like it's fun, then they will want to participate in it. So you need the two sides to work together. But back to your question of what's been driving me all this time, both as an athlete, it was to break down barriers. It was always a belief that we could be winners, and we proved that. And we could run World Cup races, and that now has become a standard that is expected in Canada. That we and then to share it with next generations. And I've always said that really my proudest moment of my involvement in sport is not actually, I'm personally proud of the results that I had, but was actually when I was leading Alpine Canada in 2006, 2007, 2008, which were the most successful years of our sport in the history of our sport, where it was the next generation. We're getting, we get 15 podiums in 2007, and nearly finished fifth in the overall World Cup. And that was the best the team has ever done. and to be assembling a team to support the next generation team who are being that successful and have gone on to win Olympic and World Championship medals. That was my most proud moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you were able to share your gifts and help others, and that way you achieved your goal, winning a medal at Olympics, which as we know that you had a bad luck to lose that ski, and but so at least there are rewards at some point in life. That's beautiful part. There are several reasons why people love to hike mountains, to admire power of nature, for meditation, to be closer to divine and God, to enjoy the irresistible beauty. And I saw that during your racing career, when almost everything counted in hundreds of seconds, and if you had time to enjoy the mountains and find their spiritual inspiration for your sports career and life, was it time for it?
Oh, there always was. We actually had a routine that while we were skiing in the World Cup that we really enjoyed. Actually, we had lots of good memories that because we were in Europe and we unlike the core alpine nations where they could go home, especially Switzerland, Austria, France, Italy, Germany, the race would be held on Saturday usually if you weren't competing in the slalom, which was on Sunday. But Monday, Tuesday, so they would scoot on home back to their apartment or to the family, get their clothes washed. But we were in the hotel. And so we just started a routine that we would travel on Monday. We would arrive usually on Tuesday and would do a ski day, just go out and ski. And it was a chance to be away from the racetrack and actually explore the mountains. And we really look forward to that, to be able to explore Kitzbühel, explore Wengen, explore Garmisch, get beyond and learn what the mountains were, and go to places that you knew you wouldn't go during the week because your activities were very focused around the racetrack or the warm-up runs, and often it was next to impossible to go elsewhere. So those are some of the really strong memories I have of going with my teammates to not only enjoy a good day of skiing, which I enjoy then, I enjoy now, but to go and experience some of the either parts of the mountain that because some of the ski resorts, of course, in Europe are very, very big, and to be going up the valley towards past Turin in Kitzbühel, and knowing that during the week there's no chance you're going to have to be able to explore other parts of the resort, and then say, okay, we're going to stop and have lunch here in a mountain hostel or a restaurant on the mountain, and experience those kinds of things, which are very different than, of course, what we have in Canada. And even today, one of my favorite things to do is actually go to a new ski resort. Some of them quite small. I actually like going to the smaller ski resorts just to see how the community and supports a location, explore the mountain. Often that's where you find the friendliest people and some of the best experiences, and especially if you can combine that with maybe there's a local craft brewer that is down in the local town, to be able to know that you're going to be meeting local people with local food, with a local experience. Then that becomes those are really tremendous experiences.
And now we are going to Olympic year, and Olympics got commercialized to a level that people of our generation would never expect to happen. What is your opinion on that? What today's athletes are missing? What is the audience missing? Did the world abandon Baron Pierre Coubertin's ideas, or it's not that bad as it sounds?
Fortunately, it's not that bad as it sounds. I think there's a certain intimacy that's gone because of the Olympics now are not only the number of athletes that are participating at the games hasn't changed that much. They're bigger for sure because there are more sports, more events, but the number of media, when spectators are permitted, they've grown significantly. The security is that's probably the single biggest change has been the security that surrounds the games, because there's such a big event. Whereas 40 years ago, it was quite intimate. There was no security. My parents could walk into the finish area and come and talk to you, whereas now that would be almost impossible to do. So that's maybe it's unfortunate, but then the reverse of that is then that it's become a much bigger spectacle. There's much more involved. It's for an athlete, both the Olympics, World Championships, and then also the World Cup become things that become, they're able to make it a profession. They're able to stay in it much longer. Athletes now into their 30s and even into their early 40s in alpine skiing are not that, they're actually becoming quite common. And to stay for 15 plus years competing on the World Cup and actually make a career out of being a professional ski racer is now something that's possible. Whereas in my era, it was hard because there were limits. The International Olympic Committee did have commercial limits on what you could do to earn an income. So, and you can't put 10 or 15 years into something when you're
and really... even Ingemar Stenmark was banned from one Olympics because of the
because he chose to
accept it.
He chose to. That was when it was shifting, and he chose to do what was called a FIS-B card, which meant he was a true professional, so therefore was not permitted to participate in the 1984 Olympics. So now that's all gone by the wayside, which is fine. It's much better that it is open and that there aren't these what's the word I'm looking for? The imposed regulations that prevent people from participating. When you run a race and you know all the best are there, that's what you want. But I think the overall experience is the Olympics are one thing, and it does give you a chance to go to and this is what I think gets forgotten by media in general, that you do when each Olympics has its own culture. So whether it's in Sochi with learning a little bit of Russia, whether it's in Cortina d'Ampezzo, which will be the site of the 2026 Olympics, and you get that next generation in Italy and get the culture. Some of that does rub off. In my case, I had Innsbruck and Lake Placid. So Innsbruck being Austria, Lake Placid being the United States, you did get a chance to meet the people, get an understanding of the culture, and that's because you're there for a period of time. You do get a bit of that, and you also, you do meet a wider range of people. It moves outside of just your own sport. Because within the Canadian team, and it's the same with all the other teams from National Olympic Committees, you're not just the alpine team, you're now seeing the cross-country ski jumpers, figure skaters, speed skaters. And I have friends that I met at the Olympics and have continued to be lifelong friends, which is contrast then to the World Cup, which is week in, week out. But there you do have, you establish very close friendships, and you have a camaraderie on the World Cup tour because you're doing something with those people upwards of 100 days a year, both in training and in competition. So you get to know them pretty well, and you can call them, they are good friends. There's rivalries. people that, like anything, people that you're closer to than others, but they become very, very close friends.
Yeah, that was part of this next question, that you remember Andrzej Bachleda, Polish alpine skier from the late 60s and 70s, and you mentioned that you know him and you still keep in touch with your rivals and downhill friends from time of the active racing. And when we talk about it, of course, there is a brotherhood of Crazy Canucks that became legendary, how you supported each other and that you were really team, and you enjoyed of every other colleague's successes. It was really amazing, and it's a good example for today's athletes if they care to watch, and I'm sure they do.
Well, so with Andrzej Bachleda, he was just ahead of me as a World Cup skier and Olympic skier, and so I think we may have overlapped. Probably not, because I actually went to the World Cup in 1975, and but I did. I do know that he was at one of the athletes and was on the podium at the World Cup in Norquay, which is our family's home mountain, in 1972, just after the Sapporo Olympics, and I was one of the forerunners. So that's sort of, there's always those. Often, the forerunner of one generation becomes the champion of the next. And he continued to have an involvement with the sport. He had some suggestions in terms of format changes to try to make it more attractive, and then his son, he and I, we interact on Facebook every now and then. But the relationship with, first with my teammates, we of course lived together, trained together. Slept together in terms of sharing rooms, and lived a pretty intimate life for a decade, and even longer. Steve Podborski, I met actually when we were both fairly even younger. It's 5 years before we were on the Canadian team, and so you get to know them extremely well. You have to. I won't say that we were all bosom buddies. We had to learn, though, to get along. We had to learn to live with each other, and people that you were some people you were closer with, and others. But you also knew, and this was a very important part of our credo, was that you had to cooperate. We had to work together. You had to share information. Often the thing that we are well known for was the passing of information on via radio, but I note that the Swiss do exactly the same thing today on the World Cup, and that's a respect and a realization. And the reason you can do that is because you may be the first one down, and therefore sharing information back up to the start, giving insight to your teammates that might result in them beating you. But at the next race, they may be the one sharing the information to you. And it's that respect and that understanding that you share it, because it's going to help the team, and helping the team helps you. So that becomes the fundamental piece of how you operate as a team, the culture you build. There's rivalries and friendships. And many of the people, Franz Klammer is someone that I've continued to keep in touch with every now and then. We don't see each other that frequently, but when we go back to the Hahnenkamm and Kitzbühel, we always see each other, and it's quick catching up and how's the family and what's happening and so on. Konrad Bartelski was one individual whom I had, who was a member of the British team. His father, Jan, was an emigre from Poland, lived in and married a British girl and produced a British ski racer. And we were very close and remained very, very, very good friends, having seen each other get married, raise families, gone on to, he's a grandfather. I'm not yet, so and I'm not rushing to be one. Other close teammates within the Canadian team and externally, And today's social media is actually great in that it helps us all keep in touch because we have a common passion for skiing and a common passion for ski racing. Many of my friends actually don't have that much of involvement with ski racing. They've chosen to ski tour or gotten involved heavily with either ski tourism or sports marketing. Hardy Weirather and Hani Denzel are two that their daughter Tina Weirather did extremely well, but Hardy and Hani they represent the Austrian Ski Federation on marketing and have been extremely successful. Others, and this is maybe what makes it really fun. As I joined my eldest son in Zermatt on the glacier in early July every year to help with a special training camp. We joined the Croatian team to ski for about 10 days. And that's helped us. Why the Croatians welcome us in, because it's a compatible group. They're focused on slalom GS. My eldest is a technical skier. And they like to have someone come in as a benchmark, and then I help. I just carry poles, side slip, so on. But I've gotten to know Istok Rodas and Filip Subcic, who has been on the podium twice this year. But in addition, get things like my son will ski over to me and say, "Oh, Fede Brignone from the Italian team is on the hill," and I won't say it anymore, but I say, "Oh yeah, I know her mother quite well," and she says, "Oh yeah, she always brings it up and she always says hi," and those kinds of interactions, multi-generational interactions, where you see somebody on the glacier and get caught up. Pierman Zilbergen being another one, and then be able to follow their kids, and that's the wonderful thing about the ski family. There's the small ski family of your immediate
it sounds really like
a broader one.
Like a family, and it's beautiful what you said about sharing information, knowing that that information might lead to that you'll be beaten at finish, but that proves that the winning is not the most important in it. That the friendship, and brotherhood, and that was the values that you. That were most important for you. What would be your advice for young athletes and young people in general to have a success and a happy life? Is there a way to achieve it, and what should be the ways of doing it?
Well, I think I would say, and I don't want to. I certainly, as far as advice to parents and involvement in sport, to move, and I think there's that can have an influence in shaping a youngster to guide them through their developing years, and then on into whatever they may wish to accomplish. And I think the root of sport is something that can apply not just it can in music, in the arts, and in culture, and in academia. So whatever your passion is that you choose, have a passion, number one, because then you really live life. If you choose sport, it's and to me, every youngster should have some exposure to some sport, even if it's just for fun. Football, soccer is certainly one of the most widespread opportunities in Canada. Hockey, of course, but it's to get a fundamental basis of activity, which. Just from I think from a well-being, certainly fitness and mental and physical health. Those are good foundations of even if as you move on in life, you're only going out for a walk, or you choose to ski, or you like to cross country ski, or you go out and play shinny with, or if you're in an organized league. in hockey, and I'm talking about the winter sports because we have enough winter in Canada, but certainly in summer with hiking. I'm an avid road biker, and just because to me it's a great way to be able to explore parts of Canada and other parts of the world that in a way that you would never do in a car, where you just go zooming through. You on a bike, you really can absorb much and see, you go off the main road, go through the little town and see the church and maybe see some monuments and so on, and stop at a local restaurant and enjoy it. But for the parent to youngster, by that foundation of getting them involved at a young age, and then if there's a will, if there's a passion for it, to pursue it, but to always keep it in context that it's a very long road. And I think you realize that you have to be patient, you have to be supportive, you want to engage your youngsters with good coaching, good technical leadership, and listen and work with the coach, and then always be there. To me, our role as parents, my wife Linda and I, has been to be there for our boys, which is when they need to be picked up at the airport, you pick them up. When they need to be dropped off at the airport, you drop them off. If they need some support or some assistance with something, you're there to help them. But you also realize the benefits of what they're getting out of sport is they have goals, they have a work ethic, they have a very deliberate plan working towards achieving those goals. They build strong friendships. They learn to aspire to a level of excellence that is, and all of those critical pieces apply to anything, whether it be friendships, whether it be taking a course at university, working towards a degree, whether it be in your daily life and doing your job, that you have to work with people. You have to know what you're going to accomplish in the day. You have to, sometimes there are short-term goals that I'm going to accomplish in the next hour or next week, or it's going to take me a year to complete this task. But in each case, the things you learn from sport apply into all sorts of different aspects of your life to help you achieve a meaningful, rewarding life.
Thank you very much. And your sons were fortunate to learn that everything from parents. And it was a great pleasure to talk to you. And I'm really grateful. And it was very interesting conversation. Actually, I was mostly listening because you have a lot of interesting things to say, and
Alec, thank you, and good questions. And
you're a great speaker. I really wasn't needed here, but
it's always the other wise thing I did was I made sure my partner has been a great mother. I always like to say that my boys learned to become good ski racers, but the foundation was I was actually very engaged in my job when they were quite young. And so someone made sure they got to the hill when I was in the broadcast studio. So I have to always make sure that the person who is maybe most responsible for their success is my partner, Linda.
Oh, that's beautiful that you're mentioning it, and I'm sure she's very grateful that you can acknowledge it. Yes, that's important when both parents can contribute, and your sons are lucky, I'm sure. Hope they will have success in the future life, and they're still young, but yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, and certainly day by day, you always sit back and say, well, hopefully they meet their expectations, that they cross the finish line and say, I gave everything, and recognizing that in every race there's only one winner, but there are many different ways to win. And if you're starting 40th and you're finishing 25th, that's a win. So take those small victories and build on them to try to achieve the big one.